Hello, I'm Donald McIntyre of Nation.com. This is Nation Live, and today we're going to talk about what does Ethereum mean for businesses and entrepreneurs. We're going to talk with William Mougayar, who is a special advisor to ETHDEV's executive directors. His work in technology spans 33 years as a four-time entrepreneur, book author, speaker, consultant, mentor, and angel investor, who previously held senior positions at Hewlett-Packard, Cognizant. He blogs on startups and cryptocurrency economy at startupmanagement.org. Hello, William. How are you?
How are you? Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing this and for your time. You know that I was very impressed with an article because I was really, after following Ethereum and the Ethereum project, it was always very focused on a language for developers. But you wrote, I think, what I think is a seminal article. And the title is The Business Imperative Behind the Ethereum Vision. So your focus is more on business. So I think it was very, very interesting. I wanted to talk about that and about your opinions of how Ethereum can be used for business and for entrepreneurs. But before that, can you tell me about your background?
Sure. As you said in the introduction, I've been in the technology space. I'm entering the fourth decade. So I've been involved since the early 80s in technology throughout my career, both on the large company side as a global executive, and then as well being involved from day one of the internet days back in '94. I was at the time with Hewlett-Packard, and at the time we called it the information highway before the internet came along. So I was able to see the internet start early, and I was able to see how it became commercialized. At the time, I wrote two books on the internet topic, one of them called Opening Digital Markets. And I was quite at the forefront of seeing how internet payments and internet commerce started to happen. More recently, I was involved running two startups in the last, since 2008. So I was able to see the startup world as well firsthand, in addition to having advised a number of startups back during the 95 to 2005 timeframe. So I started two companies in Toronto where I am. I sold the last one. And then in the last year and a half, I've been focused quite intensely, I should say, into the cryptocurrency. Recently an angel investor, and quite involved helping companies in the space going forward, because I'm very excited about the space. It reminds me of what the impact all of this activity in the cryptocurrency cryptography space.
And when did you start to follow Ethereum specifically?
Almost from day one. I met Vitalik in January of 2014. So that was probably a month after he started. He published his paper. As you know, Vitalik is from Toronto, and the first time I met him was at the Ethereum meetup at the Decentral space in Toronto. And I was as fascinated as anybody would have been at the time when we were just following Bitcoin, and this new thing came along with a very powerful paper that captured the imagination of a lot of people involved in the technology space.
Very good. Just to finish with the introduction and your background, it says here that you are a special advisor to ETHDEV executive directors. What is ETHDEV and how is that related to the Ethereum project?
Well, ETHDEV is really the group that is delivering Ethereum to the market.
Okay.
The way Ethereum started is with a foundation, but the foundation was mostly the founders at the beginning, and they were not the ones necessarily that were developing the code. But soon after the sale, the Ether sale happened about almost a year ago now, not quite, a bit less than that. They formed the ETHDEV, which is the development side of Ethereum, and they are basically acted to work on all of the different pieces of Ethereum. So they are like the development arm of Ethereum.
Is the analogy to Bitcoin like on Bitcoin we have the core developers and a lot of people know them, like Gavin Andreessen, for example.
Yes,
Is SF the group of the core developers?
it's very, very close to that, but they are definitely developing the core of Ethereum, but there's a little bit more than that. So there's a group that is involved with the communications, there's a group involved with the community, there's a group involved for education,
Very
and
good.
there's a group involved with partnerships. So they do a little bit more than just core development. And for background, my involvement started last year when I consulted for the foundation. I did a bit of work for the foundation team back then. And then most recently, since February, I would say, I reconnected with Vitalik on one of his trips to Toronto. Although he lives in Toronto now, Toronto is like a stop for him.
Okay.
Because he's all over. And then we decided to work together and having me help them a little bit more, specifically in articulating the Ethereum message to the outside world.
Excellent. So let's talk about the article and what it means for businesses. I've been always trying to participate on the Ethereum forum and the Ethereum subreddit to try to understand this for business. I'm a non-technical participant or member of the community in a way, and this is why, and that's why I found your article so interesting. Let me clarify again. It's the business imperative behind the Ethereum vision, and it's on the Ethereum.org blog. I divide the article in three parts. The first part is that you do a very interesting comparison between Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's a story between some Bitcoin community members that are, we call them Bitcoin maximalists, who think that Bitcoin, there shouldn't be alternative currencies and things like that. Therefore, and they see Ethereum as that, so therefore Ethereum shouldn't exist. Because we should focus on Bitcoin and the network effects and its strength instead of distracting the community with other projects. And I think you do a very good job comparing Bitcoin to Ethereum and why they occupy different spaces. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Just as a preface, what we have to think about is the field that we are interested in is not the Bitcoin field. The field is really cryptography. It's really the merging. There's the merging of cryptography with computer science and software engineering, and that is the field that we are involved in right now. And Bitcoin and its blockchain, what is going on in this field. So to say that Bitcoin and its blockchain are the only viable solutions going forward is a little bit like back in 1956. The first and most widely successful programming language was Fortran. And those that remember, Fortran was a very popular language that was still being taught in universities not maybe 20, 25 years ago. But to say that Bitcoin is the only thing that is viable going forward is the same as saying that Fortran was the only language that was needed back then, because it was successful and because it was deployed and because it was useful. As we all know, many other languages came along after Fortran, and they each had their own strengths, and they each added to the field of computer engineering. So the same thing is happening right now. So Ethereum is another significant development in the field of cryptography, in the field of computer engineering, that is being changed by the game theory that the blockchain type of consensus allows us to do now, and it will have its space, and so will other solutions as well. So the field really is a field of knowing how to program consensus, how to have incentives in the way that computing is run, and the field is how we are writing and developing software applications going forward. So Ethereum brings a lot of innovations to the space, and Again, to the credit of Vitalik, he had had the experience of working with Bitcoin and working with colored coins and working with the other alternative coin systems back in 2010, 11, and 12. 11, 12, and 13. And then he realized the shortcomings, and then he trimmed up this evolution that was needed in the form of Ethereum as a blockchain, in the form of Ethereum as a development environment, in the form of Ethereum as a smart client, Ethereum as a virtual machine, as a virtual network of machines, meaning that you can run applications and programs without thinking about needing a server. So all of that and all of this innovation is very appealing to anybody that's involved in writing programs and software.
On the article, you write something very interesting, which is you try to break a fallacy, which is Bitcoin and Ethereum, they both have an underlying currency, they both have a blockchain, a consensus mechanism, the proof of work in this case, and mining. Therefore, they're the same. But what you described is that in those four components, Ethereum is already different, and also there's other things like programmability, the virtual machine, and the browser client.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I will say it again. Each one of these four components, they look the same from the outside, but they have a different purpose. So the purpose of the currency in Bitcoin is primarily to support the mining network. And so it's the miners that are the most incented with the Bitcoin network and its blockchain. Whereas with Ethereum, the currency is called Ether, but it's more like fuel. It's almost like a toll. It is something you pay to run the logic on the blockchain. So the incentive is different than just to support the mining of it.
Yeah.
Same thing with the blockchain. The Ethereum blockchain was designed from day one to be a programmatical blockchain. So it provides a lot of flexibility. There's a programming language that is specifically designed to interact with the blockchain. So that offers a lot of benefits in terms of visibility, in terms of real time, in terms of scalability going forward. And it all translates into ease of use for a programmer. Then thirdly, but there are some weaknesses in the proof of work. There's a lot of waste that happens. That's why Bitcoin is today. But the Ethereum blockchain is a little bit more balanced between transactions and mining. So going forward, I think it has a better future, especially when it goes to proof of stake. And finally, the mining. I mean, so I just talked about the mining and how it interact with the consensus mechanism, and it has merits on its own going forward.
My interpretation is that, in a way, Bitcoin's original mission was to provide a new asset as a currency for the world. So it could be used, the BTC, it could be used for transaction payments, international transfers, remittances, etc. And I think that what you're saying is that the Ethereum mission, it's the reason for the invention of Ethereum and the Ethereum blockchain is to provide a decentralized platform network so that programs could be written and hosted there and executed there. So it's more for programs.
That's correct. Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin and its blockchain are not used for that as well. Both of them have applications running on their blockchain. Actually, I'm also invested in two companies that are using the Bitcoin blockchain as a store of value and as a way to store to run trust. So you can do that as well on the Bitcoin blockchain. But Ethereum is going to be more to another set of applications that are more lightweight. We are calling them smart contracts, but they are really logic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what smart contracts are little bits of business logic that run on the blockchain in a virtual sense, and they
Mm-hmm.
run efficiently and they run quickly, they are there's an incentive behind them to run them, and that's really the innovation behind Ethereum is to run these business logic that business logic, and it's really when you put it all together in a particular application that it becomes interesting.
Regarding the difference between Bitcoin, the currency, and Ether, the currency, you write, Ether will also be tradable as a cryptocurrency on a variety of open exchanges, but it is expected that its value appreciation will be more rationally influenced by the volume and richness of transaction demands than by currency speculators. So one thing about Bitcoin, we all know that it was very attractive in the media, and a lot of people came into Bitcoin because of its appreciation potential and speculative value. But here you say that Ether as a currency should behave more rationally. What do you mean about that?
It boils down back to the incentive. Right now, the Bitcoin network is really very incented for mining. So it really depends. It depends on the network of miners to run the transactions, to validate the transactions, and to get rewarded by it. Right now, if you really were to dumb it down, the only group of people that are incented to run on the Bitcoin network, not the only, but the majority, I should say, are the miners. And then the speculators came in. They saw Bitcoin as a currency, and they started to speculate on the currency itself to drive the price up, while the developers were building applications, and so that the attention would turn more to the applications and to the transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the attention is not on the Bitcoin applications. The attention is on mining on the currency.
Yeah.
To a large extent. Whereas with Ethereum, it starts with a more balanced view. It is so focused on the application. It attends the applications point of view, but also from an incentive point of view, these smart contracts, these business logic programs, do not run unless they are incented, unless the person that is originating the contract has
Okay.
to spend a little bit of ether to run that program. So the attention will be on the applications and not on the mining and not on the speculation of the money part of it, because you cannot use ether. It wasn't designed to buy and sell goods and services in the way that Bitcoin has been designed to sell goods and services. Ether was designed the fuel that you need to run the applications on the network. It's almost like the analogy would be when you run your programs on the cloud, or when you are using a cloud service, whether it's from Amazon or another cloud provider, you are paying a little bit of money in the shared infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And with Ethereum, it's like a slice of the cloud network, of a cloud network that is running on the Ethereum network, really. And you're paying a slice, like a micro cloud payment to just run these smart contracts, small business logic programs.
I think that the fuel analogy is good. The way I see it, like you say, Ethereum is the fuel because it pays for the network computing. That's the reason why the currency is there, to pay for network computing, and the network computing and storage enable the logic, and the logic enables apps, no? The apps that people
Exactly.
can build on top of. So that's why it's a fuel, and it could be more or less the analogy in terms of how speculative it could be. Bitcoin is just, it goes up and down, and that's the use of Bitcoin, because it's a store of value and it's a currency and an asset. In the case of Ethereum, it's more or less like oil, another fuel, and the futures market of oil. Speculators can bid up oil, but in the real economy, it's not being used for cars and airplanes and ships. Then it's not going to be sustainable. It would always tend to be in line or in a correlation with the spot market.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. The supply and demand are a little more in sync, I would say, with the Ethereum network. The incentives are better aligned between the users and the consumers of the network.
Very good. Before we talk about businesses, developers, and entrepreneurs, which is I think the most important part for me, can you tell me, describe the virtual machine, what it is?
Okay, so the virtual machine, think of it as a network of computers.
Mm-hmm. We're losing the
It's a
connection a little bit.
network of servers. As the virtual machine, it's called the EVM in the Ethereum context. The
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum virtual machine is this network of computers that is connected. They're all interconnected, and it's like another cloud of computers. The user doesn't even have to worry about. The user does not have to think about setting up a server or setting up a there. It's like a little bit like the BitTorrent network. All the computers are connected with each other. And the purpose of the virtual machine is to run the business logic. So the smart contracts is the code that runs on the virtual machine, and then it returns values, it returns results back to the user, to the developer.
I think that the cloud computing comparison is very good, because in Bitcoin, collectively all the miners together, they do only one thing, and that is to create blocks for the blockchain. On Ethereum, they do that, but they also do the computing and storage of the contracts. So in essence, they turn into a cloud system. And if I'm an entrepreneur or a developer, I can use that cloud system as long as I use Ether to pay for the computing and the storage. It's like Amazon cloud system, cloud service.
In a way, I mean, it's a slice of a cloud. I would add that in the Bitcoin's space, the miners also validate the transactions. So not only do they, I mean, they get rewarded with the new blocks after they validate the transactions. So that there is work they have to do. They have to validate the transactions for them to get rewarded by by new blocks of Bitcoin. With Ether, it's a little bit more balanced. It's all kind of equalized. It's more decentralized in the sense that the computing is done everywhere with the decentralized nodes of the network.
Okay. Let's talk about then, as an entrepreneur myself and other existing businesses, how do you see, what does this mean for them?
For Ethereum?
Ethereum for business, yeah.
Well, okay, so another thing that Ethereum and Bitcoin has in common is both really are meant to enable decentralization. So there's another common theme there between both of them, and between anything that has to do with the blockchain, because the blockchain, the essence of a blockchain is decentralized consensus, whether it's permissioned or permissionless, kind of in the public sense. But that is what it's supposed to enable. Now, the difference is in how it's implemented. If you can implement it with Bitcoin or with Ethereum or with another type of blockchain. I think it's important for business people to start to understand what it means. what decentralization from a technology perspective means. Technologists on their own are not going to be enough to have all of the imagination that will be required to develop these new solutions. This is a little bit like back giving you a bit of my background. Back in the early 90s, the concept of re-engineering was very, very popular.
Yes.
And there wasn't, all the companies started to get involved in re-engineering because it turned out that they had a lot of processes that were old, that were slow, that were expensive, and they had to be abolished. And information technology was this new enabler that allowed businesses to restart, to rethink, to reimagine, to re-engineer the new processes into something new. And it was all enabled by information technology. I see the same thing, and by the way, one of my last jobs at Hewlett Packard was the business process re-engineering manager. So I know something about business re-engineering. I see the same. I see the same thing happening right now. So businesses have to look at what they are doing right now. Wherever there is a lot of central bloat, wherever there is a lot of central choking, I think there's an opportunity to relax all of that and see the blockchain as a solution to decentralize these processes and let them run on the network, as opposed to let everything always be choked up by the center. And the re-engineering that is required is a re-engineering that's going to abolish a lot of the center related control and processes, and see if we can relegate those to the network, to the edges of the networks, to the nodes of the network. I'm not saying that everything has to be abolished from a center perspective, but I think there's lots of opportunities in rethinking and redesigning processes to let them run on their own without intermediaries that are going to be slowing them down. So that is the key here. The intermediaries are going to have to change. Anybody who is a clearinghouse today, who is just doing the job of validating or verifying or approving or stopping a transaction to check it, what if we can do all of that in real time on the network without having this choking point in the middle? And that is one of the promises of decentralized applications that are enabled by blockchain consensus technology, because it's the trust that you are really able to run now on the network in a very trustworthy manner, because you cannot cheat the system. You cannot cheat the trust that is running on the network because it's cryptographically secured. And that is the contribution that we have. And we could not do that before. Before, you could cheat a transaction, let's say, and then you would need somebody to check it. And now we can use some cryptographic constructs into computer science and then run these databases in a more lightweight manner.
In this new migration, the second migration after the 90s, now we're experiencing a new migration, and I think that there was something happening before crypto, and that was cloud systems and mobility. Computing is moving to our hands with our phones. What I see is, do you see that in this current environment we have Amazon Cloud Services, Microsoft Cloud Services? They are full services, no? They offer everything from the logic to database to processing the front end and delivering it to customers, end users. We have IBM in that. We have Oracle, Dell. Everybody's trying to be the cloud system for the Internet of Things and businesses and everything. Do you see Ethereum as another alternative there?
No, I should not. It's not correct to position Ethereum as an alternative to a cloud system, because it is not. What it is, it is an alternative as a development environment So in the same way as you have Java, let's say, Java is an important development environment for the enterprise. It has a client component, it has a server component. So a new way to develop applications using what Ethereum calls Web3, uh, meaning that there is a client and there's a virtual machine and there's a blockchain, and you can run
We have another delay.
these on the you can machine, and it has some logic as well, in the same way that Java has some uh, logic when you run it on your browser. So it's that kind of environment that Ethereum brings to the table, and it's all integrated. It's all meant to work together. The challenge with the Bitcoin environment is that you have to put all these pieces together yourself. And
Okay.
yes, there are overlays, and there are tools on top of Bitcoin that let you do the same thing. But from talking to a lot of developers, it is not all straightforward, and it does take a lot of work to make that happen. Whereas Ethereum is a very integrated environment that makes it a lot easier to have all these pieces work together, because the incentives are in the right place, and the incentives work together from the client side to the file storage to the messaging to the development to the languages to the blockchain to the consensus to running things on the computing on the machinery. All of this is kind of integrated, and it's the purpose is to make the life of the developer easier.
As an entrepreneur, then I was in the first wave in the dot-com boom, an entrepreneur there, and I started a company which was a personal finance portal. Now people could go there and get credit cards, loans, learn about investing, find a broker, and things like that. And technologically, it was very new to use HTML and the web technology and use the web to deliver the service. But my company had initially its own infrastructure, hardware infrastructure, and the developers and everything was in-house. Developers, software, hardware, the internet connection, and then we went out and connected with users. Today it's like reorganized with Ethereum. Could I have then on Ethereum the base programs or a group of programs, the logic, and also add an economic layer with the currency, and then I would host in my own system the front end, for example?
Yeah, I mean, without going into the details, what you've described is a very classical situation where you would, if you put a re-engineering thinking hat, and you would say, yeah, what if I know what my problem is, my business problem is, if I were to redesign a solution today from scratch, knowing what I have, decentralized tech, do that. I'm sure that you would design that solution very differently than you designed it 20 years ago or 15 years ago or even 5 years ago. So that is the opportunity now. Let us redesign the applications in ways that take advantage of the decentralization power of computing and of applications, so that it becomes more efficient to run these applications. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a cost saving, and there's going to be speeds. It's going to be faster to develop in some cases, and it's going to be cheaper. And it's going to empower more users on the edges of these networks. And if you're the one that's running it, I think you want to look at the future and not at the past.
My last three questions are first one is, so what do you see as applications as a business and for entrepreneurs? What do you see that we could be building?
Sure. I mean, anything where there's a trust component that used to be managed by the center. Anything that where there was a validation that needed to be cleared by a clearing house in the middle. anything that had a lot of central bloat that could be now relegated to the network, to the blockchain. And there are lots of applications in this respect. Some of them will be new, and some of them will be the same functions, but done in a different way. I mean, you could have prediction markets now that are efficiently run on the blockchain, and there are a couple of companies that are working on having prediction markets that are run on the Ethereum network. You can have crowdfunding that is done in an efficient manner, in a way that becomes embedded in other applications, perhaps. A lot of maybe the Internet of Things, a lot of the objects that we see. What if they were all connected with a trust component between each other? And then that could enable a lot of logic to let Internet of Things do things based on trust. So it knows that your car has entered the garage, or it knows that you're close to your house. I see applications in the areas of voting and governance, for example. You can have decentralized voting, decentralized governance run on the blockchain, because the trust can be encoded in the programs. You can have trading could be changed again. Ownership stamping the origin of particular products and throughout the whole supply chain. There's a company called Providence that is working on that particular problem. So these are kind of small actions today, but they point to the future, and it's going to be a combination of re-engineered solutions to existing problems we have, and it's going to be, and another part will be totally new ones that maybe we haven't thought about. But the way it happens, before we can dream up all the new stuff, sometimes we start by duplicating what we already have done, but we do it better, faster, cheaper. This is how the internet started. We didn't invent all these new ways. Social media did not happen in the first 10 years of the internet. We had to start by taking something we did in the physical world and say, oh, let's do it now on the internet. And then we started by copying and improving and making things better and faster. And then we started to innovate. And I think we're still in the early stages of trying to see how we can do things better and faster and cheaper and more efficiently in the decentralized space. And slowly but gradually, then we're going to start to do suddenly things that we could not do before. And sometimes it's a building block approach. We have to walk before we can run, basically.
The first thing is to make things existing things more efficient, and then with time you start to build new things that didn't exist before.
Exactly, and we need a critical mass of users. We need a critical mass of businesses that understand what is going on. We need a critical mass of startups, of entrepreneurs, and of investors. And that is the critical mass that we need, and not just of miners. And the Bitcoin space, miners could become a bottleneck because they are needed right now in a very critical manner. But going forward, I think it should be all balanced in terms of what is needed from a critical mass perspective.
You mentioned the IoT, the Internet of Things, and my last two questions are, on the big Bitcoin space, we have a company called 21 Inc. that created a chip, and their vision is to put that chip that mines in every device in the world. So my computer, my phone, my toaster, my fridge, everything is going to be mining all the time. That I see that is a layer that could help a lot the Internet of Things. And then there's side chains that would in a way complement Bitcoin and turn it in a way where give it the functionality that Ethereum has. How do you think 21 Inc. and the chip and side chains will change or modify Bitcoin?
Very, very familiar with the 21 project from an inside point of view. So I can only comment from the outside. I mean, anything that distributes computing power to the edges is a good thing. So if that comes into fruition, I think if it's good for the Bitcoin network, then that would be great. And as far as the side chains are concerned, though we're still waiting to see the applications that will come on the side chains. But it's not fair to compare Ethereum as a side chain. And some people say, well, why do we need Ethereum if you can do the same thing? Why isn't Ethereum a side chain? Well, it is not, because you cannot do what Ethereum is doing by just being a side chain. Otherwise, they would have done it. So it had to be a network on its own. It had to be its own blockchain. It had to have all of the strengths that are needed as its own blockchain, and that is really what Ethereum is doing.
Excellent, William. Okay, so again, your article is The Business Imperative Behind the Ethereum Vision. It's on ethereum.org blog. I'm going to include a link on this below this video, and also on my post on nation.com. And thank you very much for your time and for this interview.
Thank you, Donald. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.